Welcome back to another episode of Command Control Power. It's good to see both of you guys.
Hello.
It's good to be seen. Hello,
It's
gentlemen.
good to switch gears a little bit for me today. Just like I'm not finished with my workday, but like it's one of those where I'm just like, screw it. Like I just needed to put all of that aside and just like hang out with you guys for a few minutes.
Well, I got news
So
for you. It's going to be longer than a few minutes.
that's all I got is a few minutes. What do
Can we can record this in 1.5 speed? Make
Yeah,
it
exactly.
faster.
See, that's a good point. People listen to us at a faster speed, but like, why do we have to sit here at normal speed and record at normal speed?
I don't know.
Like, doesn't seem fair, does it?
It's a conspiracy.
Right.
Speaking of a faster speed, Sam, you told me to watch The Penguin. Oh my gosh, was that so slow?
Wow, that was one of the highest rated shows like in a long while. That show's
Ah.
amazing.
I couldn't wait for the mother to, just to be out of the picture. And, it just went on and on and on forever.
Well, I guess you have to be into the whole world of
Penguins?
DC and everything. So if you're not, it's not going to be exciting for you.
Okay, well, there wasn't much to the canon. It was the inter-reaction of the characters, but it wasn't. It just seemed the pacing was like, oh my gosh, slow. People say that about Severance, and I
Yeah.
absolutely love that show.
I like
Yeah.
it too.
Just my favorite
Coming
show
back
ever.
soon.
Yeah, this Friday, if you're following along on your calendar.
Yeah. I remember that having a really good twist at the end of season 1, right? It's just I like when a show does that, like just like an unexpected thing. Even if you're following along, you don't expect it. It's kind of fun. And of
Oh,
course,
yeah.
that's the hook, right?
Yeah. Spoiler alert: Helly was an Egan.
Wow,
See, I don't even. It's been a while since I've
You're
seen
really
that. I don't even
throwing
know what
that out
means.
there. Wow. Okay.
We may have to
Kinda
mute
pissed,
this
I
in
think.
post.
Yeah. You might have to take that out.
I got to say something that actually coincides with this. I can't believe I did not know this, but if you use Amazon Prime, it is one of the worst fast forwarding experiences of your entire life. Like it's awful to try and get forward in Amazon Prime. And I was like, all this time, I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I just like quickly like Googled it, and I can't believe I didn't know this. You just say, Siri, fast forward 30 minutes or whatever,
Yeah,
and it'll just
30
fast
30
forward. I
seconds.
didn't know that. So I'm
Oh,
like
wow.
sitting there swiping like crazy in freaking Amazon Prime.
Well, Sam, that's really funny because I think I talked in a recent episode. I don't remember if it has aired yet, but about my experience with Siri and trying to like just the most basic commands. So I don't remember if this is one of the ones that came up, but this happened recently. I made a note of it again where Ashley and I do the same thing. And we, like we've both learned, it's a little bit easier to just tell Siri to rewind 30 seconds
Yeah.
than to try to, futz with the remote and, oh, whoops, I just swiped. Now I'm on the closed captioning button. And it's like, now it's all, it's a mess. I'm trying to just use the remote. And so now lately we'll ask Siri, rewind 30 seconds. We're sitting here in the room with the HomePod and the Apple TV, and nothing happens in the room, doesn't rewind, and down the hall in the kitchen we hear the HomePod talking to us back there. Like, I don't know what it's saying. I'm like, I better go find out what it needs from me, but it's just been a total mess. And this is not new to complain about Siri, but like, I just cannot believe how bad it has been. So then we're in the kitchen and the music is playing a little too loudly, so we're having a conversation, the music is playing, and we say, hey Siri, turn down the music in the kitchen. And I swear to you, at full volume, Siri will respond, okay, I'll lower it, like way louder than the music even ever was. So now we're like, that's great. We got like somebody's on the phone or something and they're hearing you like argue with the speaker. It's like worse than just forget it, leave the music alone,
Yeah.
It's just
it's
so
awful.
bad. And then lastly, one other example of this, Ashley was playing something from her phone also in the kitchen, and she's in the other room. So now I'm in the kitchen and I say, hey Siri, stop the music. And she goes, there's nothing playing. she just said it in this room, which is true. But at the time there was like this loud music in the kitchen. She says there's nothing playing. And then I say, stop, nothing. I just unplugged the HomePod. I mean, it's like, it came to that, just like, this is So I can't believe, I mean, what's your experience been with Siri lately? Because I'm just hoping for an improvement with Apple Intelligence, but I keep hoping and nothing changes. So
Yeah, I can honestly tell you that like I've had things where I try and use Siri to like I have some powered outlets out front for our Christmas lights, so
mhm.
I'll tell them oftentimes to turn them on or turn them off. And if I say it on my phone, no problem, it works. If I say the same exact phrase to the HomePod, it's like, sorry, you don't have that accessory, and I'm like,
Oh yeah,
what are you talking about? Like
right,
it's just absolutely insane to me. I can't
right.
figure it out.
So
And
Sam,
even
to
the,
drive your
sorry.
television, do you use a HomePod or some sort of like what are you using for a sound bar in the main room?
We have the oh, what's it called? I can't remember. It's a sound bar that's like third party, but it's controlled through the Apple TV. So
Okay.
basically, it works. Also, a nice little add-on I will say is when you quickly rewind a show, like just go back really quickly, it automatically turns on closed captions now because it knows you
Yeah,
missed something. That's kind of
right.
cool. But other than
I
that,
But
like
sucks.
that.
can you talk to the sound bar?
No.
Okay. So we're using Sonos and we're communicating with any of our home automation, and that's a glorified word, like turn on the tree using Alexa. And that's a mixed bag too. But the Sonos speakers power the sound in the room for the TV and just for playing music. And that, like I said, that's hit or miss. I usually try to control it from the phone, but since the Sonos app was never really that good, I had mentioned this in a recent chat on Slack. There's an audio file channel, and there's a app called Soro, Soro, and it gives you deeper control into your Sonos system. So if you are using a Sonos at home, you get like really granular controls over the speakers and the sub and the left and the right channel, and you could turn on the loudness and you can mute it on the fly. So it's really nice, and it really should be built into the Sonos app, this granular
Yeah.
control of the system, but it's not. And so it's this, and it's I think it's $8 a one-time fee. So it's a good thing to have. But I didn't discover that until just the other day. So
Soros. Huh.
I
Never heard of it.
suffered, yeah, sorrow. I guess like it's a play on the word sorrow because like Sonos application has been so bad recently,
Yeah. Oh
or
man,
since the
Recently.
redo.
that's been my day actually. I would love to talk about just some Sonos venting, but yeah, like with the changes recently, I feel like some things have gotten more troublesome in Sonos. Not that it's
Yeah,
ever
let's
been
talk about
so
that
great.
now if you want to, if that's
Sure.
okay with Sam.
Okay with me.
Yeah. So my day today was well, yeah, it started yesterday. So yesterday, a client sent us an email and says, "Hey, I'm having Optimum come in and install their fiber connection. I just want to make sure they'll be here tomorrow. I want to make sure nothing. Do we have to do anything?" I'm like, "This is." I actually said, "Thanks for the heads up," even though it was like one day, because a lot of clients just call us after the fact and say they changed the modem and now nothing works. And the reason we've had an issue in the past is with Unify networks. By default, they use the 192.168.1. Whatever schema. And it turns out so does the new modem router that Optimum uses for the fiber connection. They're a local ISP, in Connecticut, in the greater New York area. Um, I wish they would install just a modem. I don't think they even
Yeah.
have that option with fiber from what and I just a lot of the stuff I just give up on because it's like I know what I need to know, but I don't know who to ask. And even if I ask five different people at Optimum, they will give you five different incorrect answers. So I've just given up. But like surely there's got to be a way to just have them install a modem, a standalone modem, or like at least reassure me that
Do we
bother
just
to
lose?
try because
Oh.
in the past when we've set the modem router device to bridge mode, it'll just like randomly go back to being a router, and then that causes further issues that are now unplanned. So it's like, all right, so I'm going to just deal with your stupid modem router boxes and we'll work around it on our side. So we plan to accommodate this change. Now, the reason it was using this standard 192.168.1.x address is that prior to a recent wave of changes last year, this client was using a legacy camera system that we didn't control, and the previous company who installed it, was like unavailable or just uncooperative or whatever. So we basically left like the entire network on this range to accommodate that device and a couple of cameras and whatever. So now that that's been replaced, we can change the network schema. So we planned it carefully. We talked to the new camera person, security company, whatever, and had them change their stuff to DHCP. The frustrating part in all of this is like just how many people you need to coordinate. And I feel like a general contractor, like trying to like align everything for this to happen like the very next day. Okay, like, can you change your stuff to DHCP? We need this done now because like in the morning before the Optimum gets there, we're going to make the change to the schema and then reboot and hopefully everything comes up. But then in addition to changing the devices to DHCP after we change the schema, like you have to go into your Control 4 system and you have to update the records of which camera, which IP addresses belong to which cameras, which go in which view and whatever. Also, there's an alarm guy that the security guy, like I think subcontracts. There's a different alarm guy, and like that guy has to go on site to actually change the alarm system in person. But you want to minimize like the downtime with any of these systems. So coordinating all of that. And then there's a separate gate controller and a separate gate camera and intercom system. And there's a separate person who does, 2 of those out of 3. So just super complicated. So
yeah,
I bring up Sonos because this same client has been having trouble with Sonos and reporting issues to us with like, sometimes you get too much detail that's actually inaccurate, So she'll say like, it's only happening at night, only in the master bedroom. And then like later it comes out, that's the only time I use Sonos because this time of year, we're only sleeping in this. Like we're not entertaining, we're not using music, whatever. So it's very hard to get clarity on that. So we figure we're going to need to investigate that. But in the meantime, we change the schema, reboot the whole unified network. So you start by, you go into the settings, you go to the LAN, the network settings, you change the LAN schema, you reboot the gateway, which in our case also is the controller. You then reboot any switches, reboot any access points, and hopefully they're all PoE so that they'll, ideally you just cycle it from the switch and then everything comes back up. So Unify all comes back up. Great. New IP addresses across the board. Awesome. All the other DHCP devices work. There's like 4 old cameras that are being phased out. So we knew about that. There's the alarm system, which needs to be, we're waiting on them to show up like any minute now. And then the cameras need to be reprogrammed or whatever. But Sonos, there's like 6 Sonos devices that like, you can try. They just have to be physically rebooted. There seems to
Can
be
you
no
be
solution.
Specific what devices they are? How, what vintage are these Sonos ones from the old days? Controllers.
I don't know the
whatever.
models. Yeah, good questions because I don't know the models, but like I'll just click through a few. There's an Arc soundbar.
Okay, that's
there's
fairly new.
Yeah, they should all be new. There's a Sonos sub. Let's see. There's a Sonos amp. That one looks like, well, it might be the wrong photo.
The sub
Sonos
only
Play.
works off of Wi-Fi, so that may have to be, hold the button in until it starts to rapidly blink and rejoin. So that's something that requires physical contact.
Right, but so and that makes sense. But I still don't understand why, like by rebooting all the access points, Wi-Fi goes away. So Sonos says, okay, I lost my connection. That's fine. I'll just wait for it to come back. Wi-Fi comes back up. Sonos says, hey, great. Can I have an IP address? Like that's what should happen, right? Like, why is it using the old IP address? That's not standard networking behavior. Like, I can't figure out a scenario where like, and we did it twice. We rebooted all the APs again, all the switches, etc. So I don't know why those particular ones won't get an IP.
Based on experience, that you're right. And Sam knows this too, because he's got installations with Sonos devices, right? In the
I'm not a fan.
Physical therapy centers that you manage, but a lot of times, the way that those Sonos works, Joe and Sam, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but maybe for our listeners, they're grouped into zones. And so, for instance, downstairs where we have our TV. We've got a sound bar, the I forget what they call it. It's the smaller Sonos soundbar, and that wirelessly talks to two speakers in back of the couch, which are Sonos ones, and the sub, which is in back of the couch. And I know that if I change the LAN schema, there's no way those, the soundbar,
Right.
because it's, but the other devices are like, what do I do now? Yeah. And I would physically have to go in, and reset them.
Right.
And unfortunately, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's like people want to be able to open up the app and then see, oh yeah, zone, the living room is all these 4 speakers or 5 speakers are all on one thing. And I want to use one slider to control the sound on all of them or individually parse them out. And you can't have that. You can't have that flexibility, but still expect them to be that respondent. I don't even know if that's a word, but
yeah, we'll call it a word. Yeah.
Okay.
And John Motor in the chat says Sonos rarely exhibits, quote, standard networking behavior. So yeah. Thanks, John, for validating that little quip of mine, because I mean, I just like, that's been my experience with Sonos all along as well. They just always behave strangely. They're like, I mean, we've talked about the loopback issues and like the, which relates to their STP behavior and whatever. But again, like, it just seems to me like these are Wi-Fi devices or wired in some cases. And in either case, like they're going to see that the network connection drops and they're going to see that it has been restored. And what they should do, like what every other device does, is it just like starts over. I like, why does the Sonos still show the old address? Like it's doing something it shouldn't be doing.
I had a question about this. As far as I know, and I could be very wrong about this, but Sonos doesn't have, just in terms of their product line, is there more of a professional product line and a home product line? Because I feel like, I feel like if they had professional lines that were like, the stuff that we see in offices and things of that nature that are more like speaker systems that connect to a back end for, I don't know, music throughout the office, whatever. And they had more standard, setups for networks. And then, do the funky, cool, whatever weird Sonos stuff for the home pieces.
Right.
And I get it that some home users might use more professional equipment and things like that, but it feels like they try and do too much. And in networked environments that are for businesses, this too much really interferes with everything that we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the speaker system for you then.
Yeah. Well, no, I know. I never recommend Sonos. I got to tell you, I'm always working with Sonos already existing. It's just because it pisses me off so much.
I mean, for better or worse, because we also have a comment from Ben Morales in the chat saying he has 9 HomePods at home and 2 in the office, and he can say with a high degree of confidence that Siri is the worst. And he's considering adopting Home Assistant voice. Was Home Assistant a Google thing, or which one is Home Assistant?
I think so.
But yeah, so I mean, because I was going to say, to your point, Sam and Jerry, like, I would only really recommend HomePods because it's first party and it, like, in theory, it just works. Except like I said, in my experience, it really doesn't even just work. And I have other little layers with HomePods where you'd think this would be pretty simple. I have, very small place. I have the living room and I have the kitchen. That sometimes I want to have the same music playing in both. Now, Sonos has been doing that forever. Apple did it first. They did it with the Air, what did they call it? AirTunes, back in the day, right? You could go in iTunes, you could say, play it from my computer speakers, play it through the, the
party mode.
Apple, yeah, right. Then party mode. Yeah, that's right. You could go and add tracks to Up Next and stuff. You could let people do that. Yeah. And, you could play it through, AirTunes through the, what do you call it? Stupid Airport Express with the little optical or mini plug.
Wow.
Right. So I had that for clients like 15 plus years ago, like before Sonos even existed. It mostly worked, sometimes there's like little out of sync issues, whatever. But for the most part, Apple's been in this game for a pretty long time. So with these HomePods, it generally works, but I just find it so many taps to like go in and like, I don't want to AirPlay from my phone to the 2 speakers. I want the 2 speakers to just play from the playlist internally. Like, so my phone can do something else, And so, but the standard one app, like Apple will pop up at the top, like tap here to AirPlay to your system or whatever. And I don't want to do that. So I have to go into the music. I have to tap on the little icon at the bottom to select the output. I have to tap on the control other speakers, then or devices or whatever, and then I have to like tap those two devices. Then I go back, it refreshes the music app to show whatever playlist was last on those devices. I have to navigate to the music I want and press play. That's a lot of taps, like to just do something that should be more simple. And it's, these are little popovers that pop up and then they change and like they dismiss in a weird way. Like there's just lots of weird interface things that seem like added on. And so anyway, I'm not sure that I'd recommend that to a client and say, yeah, rip out all the Sonos that give us trouble with the network. And instead, now you have to learn this weird, Apple system for controlling home.
Plus, it's not a whole home solution. They don't make a sound bar. They're downsizing this. They're only making the small speaker. They discontinued the larger speaker. It's interesting. You mentioned the Airport Express. I actually use that to bring speakers that were wired into the ceiling by the previous owners to bring those speakers online and make that a zone. I'm actually using the optical out on the Airport Express and being able to send music there using that.
Wow,
as an endpoint.
Still works.
Yeah, still works great.
I just want to know where 9 HomePods can go in a home. Ben,
that's what I was thinking too. Yeah. You guys kid me because you think my house is big, and I'm like an animal. I've only got a couple Sonos speakers. I don't know 9. Yeah. Goodness,
9 times.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, some of them could be stereo pairs, let's say.
Benjamin's living the dream, I think.
Yeah. Well,
we're gonna ask him if he's got a drawbridge.
It could be a nightmare depending on, how well this stuff is behaving. But so I mean,
he could have like 5 or 6 kids and each one has their own HomePod.
Exactly. You could have one in each room. Tim is there at this client right now, rebooting Sonos in person because there's no reboot in the app.
You could have hired me to do that, Joe.
Well,
I was available.
Yeah, I know. You might have to go back tomorrow. Be careful what you wish for because it sounds like it's ready. A mess over there.
I'll start the car.
And then it's just and there's no reboot, like you can't get into the network interface to reboot them, so they just require physical presence there. So anyway, that's been my frustration lately with Sonos. The other thing with Sonos we dealt with was you have to be Wi-Fi only or network, right? So that's fine. We understand the best practice, and if they have a network connection, I guess it's considered best practice to turn off Wi-Fi on that device, which you can do. There's a little setting, I think, in the app. And what Tim found, and I've mentioned this on the show, is that they will actually like turn their own Wi-Fi back on under certain circumstances. And we think it was related to that previous Sonos Net system that was like not Wi-Fi but wireless. And if there was like an old Sonos in the mix that used that, they would all turn Wi-Fi back on to be able to give that one a connection and just weird stuff like that. So we're not even clear now, based on these changes, like if we can ensure it, they're all wired, with the exception of like the one you mentioned, Jerry. There's a couple that have wireless that don't have an Ethernet port, and you just have to they have to be Wi-Fi. But now that they support Wi-Fi, because we did replace the older Sonos Net ones, those should connect to Wi-Fi directly and not require any of the other ones to have a wired and wireless enabled. So it's just confusing. It's like I wish they would just do things a more standard way. I don't know what else to say, but
yeah, well, I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. But I do think that we have a little bit of HomePod competition going on in the chat, because now Adam Rice says he has 11. So I want to see what this can get up to. But it's pretty impressive. I have 2.
No, I have 3. So I think like HomePod to square foot basis, I'd probably win this because like I have such a small footprint. But that's 11 is a lot. I don't know that I could even keep track of that many HomePods at this point.
Yeah, Benjamin, he's thrown down the gauntlet, so the store is still open.
Yeah,
that's right.
You can change the number today.
I'll just get a couple more, at least to be at a respectable number at some point.
Yeah.
On the subject of Wi-Fi, broadly speaking, the Sonos, I would imagine, communicates under 2.4 gigahertz, right? It's not capable of doing 5, right?
Are the new ones capable of 5? I think they might be.
I don't know. I can
No?
check
Okay.
if any of the current ones are on what technology they're on here. Let's
because anyway, regardless, right before the holidays, there was a story that hit the wire. Like, it was heavily publicized, where I think one of the companies that the United States was coming down was the import TrendNet, I believe, is the name of the company, right? They make the electronics gear, the communications networks, and the routers and things like that.
Yeah.
And they were thinking like, oh, this is suspicious because it's coming from China, but this is like, everything's from China, right? So it seemed odd that they were pinpointing them specifically. But it gave me pause. And I've always been an eye roller in, if someone had come up to me or contacted me, which would be refreshing if I got contacted by a client these days, or even a new client, and they asked for an IoT network, an Internet of Things network, I would have been like, okay, we could do that, and sell them a Ubiquity system and something that could put out a separate Wi-Fi. But reading that story about TrendNet, and I don't have any TrendNet gear, it's all Ubiquity gear here at home. I decided to do that, and I was recently installing, I put this out on Slack, Wi-Fi out in the backyard, because the way this old antique home is set up, we have a well, we don't have city water. And the well itself is in the barn, in the ground, in the ground. And there's like a box in the barn, this big barn with a slate roof that has
Wi-Fi in the well.
Hold on.
I'm curious if you're doing work down there.
How many home pods are in the barn? That's what I want to know.
And this box is insulated, and you can't physically see a pump, but you could see the galvanized pipe coming out of the cement, which goes into the ground in this insulated box, and it sends the water to the house, right? And it's pumped through that, right? So where the water breaks through in this galvanized pipe and takes a right angle turn and goes back into the ground, the previous owners felt like they had to keep this box insulated so that the water didn't freeze.
Sure.
So the previous owner, who was a bit of a interesting Rube Goldberg kind of contraption kind of guy, he set up, it was pretty ingenious. He set up a thermostat inside the box, and you could set the temperature. So if the temperature gets below, let's say 45 degrees, it'll throw on 2 light bulbs inside the box. So you can't get LEDs because LEDs don't throw out any heat. So I keep these checked and monitored, with incandescent bulbs. And that's what generates the heat, enough heat inside the box to keep the box at 45 degrees. So, that's prone to failure. I don't go out there and check the bulbs and the bulbs blow and it's been a couple of days or something like that. And I could have, a real problem on my hands where I have to thaw out the water flowing into the house. This story's already way too long, but to sum up, I wanted to get a way of monitoring the temperature inside the box. And the only way I could do that was I needed to throw out some Wi-Fi into the backyard far enough to get inside the barn, inside the insulated box. And then there's something on Amazon that you could buy that just monitors temperature. And there's an app, and you could put it on your iPhone, what it is inside the box. And I can tell you right now, it's like about 45 degrees. So that all went well. But in doing this, it made me rethink 2.4 gigahertz IoT network. So I did that, and I created a new network for my Mac computers, and anything that I wanted to keep on a, let's say, 5 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz spectrum, but separated out from all these other cameras that I have, Ubiquity cameras excluded, of course. They're part of the protected network. And so the easiest way to do that was just to surrender my old Wi-Fi SSID to the and make it IoT, which you can easily do in the Ubiquity app, and just create a brand new network for all my computers to join. With an SSID of mac and cheese. I thought that was
nice.
Pretty clever, because one of my daughters really likes mac and cheese. So that's what our new network is called. And the Internet of Things is just another name, CBTS or something like that.
Okay.
So that worked well. I mean, and it was just, you'd be surprised. I mean, you probably aren't surprised because you guys are tech guys and everybody listening, how many things are actually on the Wi-Fi network. It's crazy, you know, especially if you're buying these Alexa switches, which is what we have to control some of our lights, you know, really down and dirty stuff that I just like wired into the wall, like dumb stuff, you know, that I could put on a timer, Alexa's, all that stuff. And now it's all kind of segregated if Alexa's listening. That's my story.
You're right. You're right, though. I mean, the easiest way to separate that out was to leave the IoT devices on that network, because changing those would have been a pain in the butt. And just, you know, the devices that you can easily manage, just change those. That was a smart.
So maybe that's a tip for the day. You know, if a client comes and asks you to do this, you keep the existing network running and just change that to IoT. And make a new network for your client.
So basically turn off the 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz if applicable, and just leave the 2.4. Yeah, that is a great idea. I mean, because they call it out in here, you know, for optimal IoT interoperability, we recommend creating a dedicated network for your 2.4 gigahertz IoT devices. That's right from the Unify portal, you know, on the Wi-Fi page. And this came up at the same client actually a few days ago who said, hey, my Ring cameras aren't working. I have somebody here working on it and da-da-da. And I said, yeah, I see these cameras, but I don't see this, you know, this one or this one. They show that they went offline like last month. And as long as you have somebody there, you know, reset the device and reconfigure it. And you know, we had already set up this IoT network as a new network. So I said, you know, you can connect to that special network, which is what some of the manufacturers now recommend. And I think she ended up just redoing it on the original network, which seems to work. Like, we actually haven't seen that issue where some of these devices require 2.4 and require only having 2.4 on that SSID. But I did see it like a month ago where a client had bought these lights from Amazon that were, you know, Wi-Fi controlled Christmas lights or something, and couldn't get her phone, you know, just walking through the steps of the phone to connect to the lights, to get them on the Wi-Fi and whatever, and they wouldn't work. And so I created this separate new network with a different, you know, SSID, obviously, for the 2.4 only. And sure enough, that actually fixed it in her case. So that was the one time I've seen it, but we have not seen any issues with our, you know, latest generation Unify gear, you know, U7 Pro and things like that, with Internet of Things devices that I know of. So
yeah, they make it pretty clear on a lot of these things that you buy on Amazon now. It's right there before you buy it. You know, only works on 2.4. As a matter of fact, this temperature sensor that I put inside the insulated box made that really clear too.
But it's interesting though that they would have trouble on a network that also broadcasts 5 gigahertz, you know, since seemingly it can only connect to 2.4. So it's kind of interesting to me as I observe the stories here, but I've definitely seen similar behavior. Just interesting.
Same. I just don't know why, again, like, follow networking, you know, practices and protocols. Like, you know, it should work. Like, if your device has 5 gigahertz radio, it tries to connect on 5 gigahertz. Great. If it doesn't, you know, I don't understand why, to your point, Sam. Like, why can't they just connect to the 2.4, even though it has the same name as one with more modern technology? I don't understand that, but...
Well, it could be that the chipsets that they're using are not the same. Obviously, they probably aren't the same, and not all chipsets are probably created equal and don't follow protocols or standards that are laid out. So these are probably less expensive Wi-Fi chipsets that are in these devices, and maybe they don't play nice. They can't do a scan and say, oh yeah, so I see there's a 5, but there's a 2.4 I can join here. They just have to see it or not see it. I don't know.
Don't start applying logic to this, Jerry. Come on. Let me just complain.
I know. Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason. Because, like, I mean, again, a lot of them do work just fine. Why some of them have this problem, I don't know. But maybe it is these cheaper ones, or I guess, I mean, you're lucky that does specify, because you kind of knew that going in. But I feel like maybe I'm just ignoring it. But I haven't seen that in a lot of the cases, you know, with them specifying. But to your question earlier, Jerry, you asked about Sonos. There are 2 devices that I see on this network that do support 5 gigahertz that are actually connected on a 5 gigahertz channel.
Okay.
Actually, wait, sorry. That one's not a Sonos, even though it came up for Sonos. So the one device that I see, or there's 2 now. So there's the Sonos sub that we talked about earlier, and then there's a Sonos Play 1. Those both have a 5 gigahertz connection. So there you go.
Yeah, they both redone both of those products. They still look the same, but there's been revisions to them. So I'm pretty sure mine do not, but who knows?
Yeah. I think they've made a lot of changes to the hardware lately. So
I got something in continuation to this. It's not Sonos, but more, I was going to say Synology, but also Synology and SonicWall, but similar to just focusing on a product in particular or a product line. I don't know if I've seen this elsewhere. I haven't looked it up, but we've had a rash of Synology power supply failures lately.
Oof.
Where, yeah, like a number of them where the interesting thing is the Synology would still show power. And I think if I have it correctly, it would show like just the solid yellows for the drives. Like I got to check and check with the staff, but it would show power, but just nothing was working on it. And we thought we needed a replacement Synology device. And then we just, for kicks, we replaced the power supply and it just magically started working. And then this happened 2 more other times with clients within the last like month and a half, maybe. Different ages, different models. There wasn't anything specifically the same about them. And then, just as I was like, kicking myself on over Synology, just causing me headaches, same thing happened with a SonicWall the other day. And these are connected to like, battery backup units and surge protector, not like just plugged into a wall.
Right.
And, it was really shocking. We had the whole network go down. And luckily I had a SonicWall TZ500 plug because they're not all the same, the different models, which I don't know why, but and I ran, it was like an hour and a half away from me, this client. I drove it up there with just in the hopes that, because again, it was showing lights. It was showing that it was on, and I replaced it and the whole thing came back online and thankfully we saved the day. But you guys haven't seen anything like that, have you? Like any power issue like that?
Thankfully, I have not seen that recently, except for a Unify device, which we've seen stuff like this with Unify over the years, but a UDM SE, and I don't remember how old it is, but I think I mentioned this on the show, possibly. I noticed
it's probably one of the ones I sold you.
Yeah, could be. No, I noticed as part of my kind of regular proactive review that this unit had a high uptime of like, I forget, 90 days, let's say, or whatever. And I thought, let's proactively restart this. It was right before.
What could go wrong?
It was right before Thanksgiving. And I knew this, retail store. I'm like, okay, they're going to have a busy week next couple of weeks.
Nice.
So let's proactively restart. But you know what I said to myself? I said, no. I said, I'm going to do this because I knew they needed it on site. So I said, let's wait for the on-site and restart it then. So I said, this will be nothing can go wrong. Tim will be there in person. The one time a couple of times in the past where we've rebooted something and it hasn't come up, you could just unplug it, wait like 2 minutes, plug it back in. That should solve it. So I'm thinking worst case scenario, he's there, he can solve that. Turned out that he's there in person and he does the restart of the device and it doesn't come back up. So he waits a little bit, it's not coming up. He had to do some other stuff, so he unplugs it, does some other stuff, so he leaves it unplugged for like 20 minutes or something.
This is the story of your life, by the way.
Tell me about it. He goes back to that.
Like it's like right, Sam? Every other show he's on and he's telling us about,
unplug it, wait 2 minutes, wait 10 minutes, wait 20 minutes.
Swing the dead cat.
Yeah. So, he's there, he plugs it back in, still not booting. So he has to drive, speaking of the heroic, like drive all the way there and back. So now he drives all the way back home to get a UDM or UDR, so they had a UDM SE. He brings a UDR and puts it in place and gets it all working. So problem solved temporarily. Wow. So now we have to figure out, so he brings that back to his house and he unplugs it for an hour and he finds that will reset it. Unplugging it for a full hour. So, and then he recently told me, and this is why it came up. It's like, I'm like, okay, so it's working. Great. Let's put it back in place, I guess. I mean, I don't really entirely trust it, but they all have a fluke once in a while. So, okay. But then it turns out, it sounds like if you unplug it for less than an hour, you have to unplug it for an hour to bring it back up. So I'm like, we can't have that, now I don't really know what to do in that case. Like just buy a new one. Essentially, I think I'm going to tell the client, but that's the one example, and it sounds like maybe a power supply thing, or I don't really know what to blame. If we do a full factory reset, maybe that's going to solve it. But I wanted to mention,
out of warranty.
I think so. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm gonna have to ask him. Like, so much stuff came up today, but Sam, with your power supply thing, the weird thing about it is like it gets power. And so you
Yeah.
think, it's okay. Like, but so it's not you think it's not a power supply thing. It's got to be something else. But especially in the case of Synology, like I imagine their internal power supply is putting out like several different voltages, and over several different pins or whatever. So like the drives are getting power through one like output, and like the controller is getting, the computer basically is getting power another way. So it kind of makes sense, but like it would be nice if there were a way for them to detect that. Like,
Yeah.
show me the voltages that the thing is measuring or something, or, just light up like, a light on the front panel if it's getting like all the right voltages. And if it's not, then, that's a red
Blink.
light or something. Yeah. Blink or whatever. Exactly.
Mm.
Like to
Yeah.
diagnose
If you
that.
can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
tricky.
know. I gotta also double check. I'm hoping someone took a picture of it so I have something for documentation, but I'm not sure what the status of the lights were. I thought they were solid yellows on the drives, but we also had a Synology actually die, and I thought I was going to be a big hero with a power supply on this one, and it just straight up. It also was showing lights, but just wasn't able to be connected to or anything. I tried
Wow.
the new power supply, all this stuff. Have you guys? I don't know how long it's been, but like Synology migration with the right models is pretty easy.
Mhm.
So, basically you take out the drives, you put them in a new, but it was a different model. So it had me a little concerned, even though
Yeah.
Synology said it would be all right. So it was a 4-bay model to another 4-bay model. The original was like a 415 plus, and I forget what I think it was like 918 or something like that. So the second model, I put them in the same order, of course, that you have to do them in as they were in before. But
Mhm.
at first, it showed in find.synology.com, it showed up, but then it showed like configuration missing. And I was like, that
Oh boy.
heart sinking moment. You're like,
Mm.
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
God, please no. And
Right.
so I just reseated the drives, and thankfully it showed like, restorable or whatever I forget. Oh, migration available, I
Wow.
think was the terminology.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was another one of those where it's just like your heart like starts to flutter or do whatever, because you're not sure what your day's going to be like after that, or evening,
You guys
because you don't
there?
know if it's going to be a big time shit show. Excuse my language. So it was a little tough, but we got it done.
Yeah, because like then what would you do if it's, literally doesn't come back up? I mean, okay, put him back in the original. Well, no, the original's dead. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you're just dealing with backup at that point. And then
Right.
your decision is like, do I have to order more drives that are blank so I can set these aside just in case and
Yeah.
wait for those drives just to restore to new drives? Or do I erase these drives because I'm gonna, I don't mind working without a net or working with only offsite backups or yeah, that's a tough. Like your gears are turning. You're like,
Yeah.
please just work. Like, I don't want to go through that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Gears were turning big time. And there was construction in that office. And I was just like, ugh, it's like, and they're like, and then like the contractors wanted to grab me for some wiring questions. I'm like, I'm really
Yeah.
kind of in the thick of it right now, guys. Like, this is not good. Can you come
Yeah.
approach me later?
What,
But
you mentioned, Sam, like, is there anything in common with these? You said they're not the same age. They're not the same, like, models, like any other commonality. And how old are they on
yeah, I
average? Like,
mean, each of them were a few years old. They weren't new. So there was that. But it wasn't like they were the same exact model. They were different base sizes. There were different years purchased. There was nothing that I could see. And they were connected to protected sources on the electrical side. So
Mhm.
I couldn't find any commonality between them. It just happened to transpire within like 6 weeks, all
Wow.
within each other. So I don't know. I'm gonna check with Matt because he might have more information, but that's pretty much everything I had at that point.
Could be a Y2K thing.
Yeah, it finally hit us.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, on a recent Slack, you were looking for some way to control outlets and reboot
Yeah.
outlets. Was that to specifically solve a problem with a client who needs to frequently reboot a modem, or you just want to have more control over doing something like that remotely?
Yeah, I want to have more control in certain cases. We haven't had any like repeating issue of a modem like needing that. There used to be like, and people still think
Yeah.
of it as best practice, like, oh, just reboot your internet every week and then it'll proactively like fix it. But my opinion is like, if that's happening regularly, you got to replace something in there. It's you shouldn't have to like reboot it just to keep it working. But in the off chance you have to reboot it, I want a way to do that remotely. But specifically for this client who has this phone system that's based on a like on premises, the premises being a residential home, Windows PC to run the phone system, and that already froze at one point, and they like, we had to go there and reset it. So I thought, it'd be nice to have, because we'll still have network access, in theory. So we should be able to just go in and press a button and reboot the Windows PC if we had
and
to.
You weren't too enthusiastic about Watt boxes. What about them soured your opinion of them in recent months?
I had one at my old office fail after, I forget. It could have been 3, 4, 5 years old.
Oh, I remember this story, Sam.
Yeah.
So he's still carrying this. It's not a torch, but
it wasn't
what would
just
be the opposite?
one
Spear for Snap AV, because they didn't warranty the product for him. He told us on another show they didn't warranty the product, and Joe's like, he's down in that company.
No, they did. Well, they did warranty like at least 1 or 2 over the years for me, because that was not the only one. That was just my office. And there were like 1 or 2 at 1 or 2 other clients, like 1 or 2 each, basically. And,
really,
and 1 or 2 of them were the ones that were, because we inherited 2 of these that I think got repaired. They were the ones that look like a piece of AV equipment, like they go in your rack of stereo gear or whatever, and they have like a shiny faceplate, like they blue lights, whatever that model was. They had a known issue with that one. And then the similar, like the version of that was the rack mount with the orange outlets.
Sure.
That one also. And so like it was like the specific failure mode where it was like every other, outlet would stop being able to turn on or be controlled. Wow. So they did warranty that once or twice for a couple of these units. In fact, I still have $100 on account with them because I got set up as a reseller at one point, and then when this all happened, I stopped using them. But they did give me some kind of credit, and I think they told me at the time, like, there's no warranty for this, we can't fix it. And they never like offered, but I think they just, as a concession, like put money on my account essentially. So I still have that, and I may use that as a good reason just to buy you recommended the 3 outlet model. Are those 3 independent outlets? Do you know?
Yeah,
do you remember?
they are.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Because they also have a 2 outlet one that's both outlets get controlled at the same time, and then they have a 2 outlet one where they're independent. But you said those are
newer because because back in the day there were only the 3 outlets that were ever available.
Okay. Yep.
To folks like ourselves. Sam, do you regularly use Watt boxes?
I do. Yeah, I told something on a recent show how we use them for the different IDF switch closets.
Yeah.
Perfect fit for that.
For the arcing access points.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's right. Okay, I should have thought about that.
3 that are still down.
If it's good enough for you guys,
Sam, sure. If it's good enough, Mr. Apple, it's got the seal on it.
Both of you. Yeah, no, I think I like you said. I mean, I'm probably just carrying some kind of spear or whatever for those guys still. About that. I just was wondering if it's. I guess you're saying it is reliable. So.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about it is that they have the app. You can have the client use the app, and you can show them how they could, instead of calling you, they could reboot it themselves. And, that's always a good thing to have. And they feel like they got some control over the system. I have a client who, how do you like when you go to, I don't know how many residential people you have where you have like rack mounted Ubiquity stuff, but you don't visit them regularly, and you come and you visit them and they say like, oh yeah, we've been losing internet. But what I do is I just pull the plug and they're like pulling the plug in the whole system. And I'm like,
right.
What?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Seriously.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like at least know which plug to pull, right?
Yeah. Right. And that's, recycling the modem sometimes, especially in our area where we have Comcast, sometimes that'll, work wonders.
I mean, I've said this before, but I had a client that used to unplug their server whenever their internet went down.
Oh God,
it's like the dumbest thing you can do.
Right now, if you didn't have a problem before,
Yeah. And Chris Hover in the chat mentions that he's been using Watt boxes since we mentioned them. If you are listening to this show and you're interested in doing that, The parent company is called Snap AV, and you can be signed up as a reseller. There's no minimums, there's no sign up fees, and they have a suggested retail price, and then they have a technician price. So you can make a serious little, some serious pocket change by reselling those at the suggested price. And there's no way typically that your client can find out what the selling price of these are other than the actual suggested retail price. So it's very transparent what the discounted rate you're getting.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
and
point.
Chris also just says, sorry, Joe, ADI Global just bought them out, distribution, who is one of which is one of his distributors.
Okay.
Everyone's getting bought out.
Yeah, that always concerns me too, but I don't think it's going to get necessarily much worse. But yeah, it seems like a good solution. I guess the other thing is I really just wish that Unify would create this, or continue to support this, because they had the Smart Power line. I guess it's still a product line, and they had Smart Power Plug and Smart Power Strip. Those are the two devices that appear to have been discontinued. The plug was one plug. The strip was like, I don't know, 8 outlets or something like that. And USB and things built in, controllable. So in theory, those would be perfect for my needs, because it's just like one plug, and I would just go to the Unify portal that I already have and just click a button. But instead now, I've got to like set up, oversee for the watt box and manage that separately. So it's not a big deal, but it's just unfortunate it has to be its own setup.
All right, Joe, I've got it. I have a used one of the single plug, and I also have the power strip. If you hire me for the job, I will give you the single one.
The single one. That's worth like $9, Joe. Just saying.
No, well, actually, I don't know. They're on eBay, and they're probably more expensive than that. So, Jerry, you might be better off selling it on eBay, make more profit that way.
The other interesting, you brought this up too. There's something that I have had downstairs, new in box, and it was a rack mounted power recyclable, and I could bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could show it on the next show, but and that's not even listed anymore. I don't know what I paid for. I didn't pay very much for it. And they don't even sell that.
It's like I forget. I think it's a Smart Power line also, like Smart Power PDU, I believe is the product. Is that right?
Right. And you'd mount it in a rack. It looks really nice. I just didn't have a use for it because I already had something else installed down there.
PDU Pro. Yeah. Yeah. I have one of those. I think just wanted a client. And yeah.
Oh, Chris has two for you, Joe.
Yeah. Oh,
there I am interrupting you again.
Yeah. No, 2 in stock of the Smart Power. I'm just going to respond here. Well,
we're doing
live,
a deal.
Chris. Yeah, we're doing a deal live. You have 2 in stock of the Smart Power plug, the single outlet plug. Yeah, I might be interested in that. Although I will say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Ubiquiti discontinued.
Yeah, he's got the smart plug.
Nice. I may be interesed. Yeah. I'll chat with you on Slack.
This is why you listen
to
the show live. You can make a deal.
You can make a deal live. But those are also sometimes problematic. Like I had one location where they kept dropping off Wi-Fi because of course they're Wi-Fi only, which some people also don't like. And they will lose the Wi-Fi connection. They still supply power, thankfully. They don't just say, whoops, no Wi-Fi. Well, I better just cut power. No, they keep the power supply on, but you have no way to remote control it if they, of course, drop off Wi-Fi. And I've heard of people, I've never seen it, but some people have said, they can just they just stop working or whatever entirely. So I just wonder if they're re-engineering this and they'll bring this product line back. But yeah, in the meantime, I would definitely be interested in buying one of those, or maybe both of them, Chris, because we do have a couple of uses, but at least for that Windows PC, easier than setting up a whole new portal for this one-off, kind of use. So yeah, let's talk talk offline, as they say, off the air, I should say. Speaking of things that may have more value now on the reseller market, as we kind of wrap up the show here, does anybody out there have a FireWire 800 to Thunderbolt 2 adapter? Because they seem to be going for around $100 to $150 on eBay.
What? I just threw out a bunch of stuff. Oh
I did too.
Are you serious?
I'm sure I threw some of those out or recycled them or whatever when I was closing my office, because it's like, how many FireWire 800 adapters does one guy need anymore?
Yeah.
Thunderbolt 2, right?
Thunderbolt 2 to, it's like Apple branded Thunderbolt 2 to FireWire 800. So
Yeah, when you
I
first
looked,
told me about this, I sold one on eBay. I'm gonna have to look again if they're still high in price.
I just checked it
Yeah.
recently because a client sent me a photo and they're like, here's these drives. They got like 3 or 4 hard drives and there's, a FireWire 400 and then 800 and this and that. So I'm looking it up so I can respond like, okay, buy one of these. So I have the cable, I have the 400, 800, you need it. So these days you need a series of adapters. You need USB-C, / Thunderbolt 4 or Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2. So you need Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2. Then you need Thunderbolt 2 to FireWire 800. Then you need the 800 to 800 cable or an 800 to 400 cable or the adapter, as the case may be. So that's a lot of stuff already to like source and find links and all this stuff. And I get to the last piece of the puzzle, which is the FireWire 800 adapter to Thunderbolt 2, and they're not in stock anywhere. And then I look on eBay and they're like over $100. So I ended up telling that client, this is, we're not going to help you erase these drives because it just doesn't pay to do this anymore. Like find a company that's going to physically destroy them. That's our answer. But it just was funny to like the blast from the past. Like I didn't realize so much time went by where this stuff is basically obsolete now, just completely obsolete.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everyone out there for listening to another fun episode of Command Control Power. And let us know more about what you want to hear in 2025 as we are full speed ahead into this year. Let us know what you want to hear about on the patron only show if you're a patron, and let us know what you want to hear about on the public show as well. We certainly would welcome new members to sign up at commandcontrolpower.com. Click on support to take you to the Patreon page. And that's where you heard some names today, people participating in the live show. Those are our patrons who sign up. And one of the perks of membership is to listen to us and participate live. And you also get access to a lot more content. We put out on average at least one extra show every month that's for patrons only. So if you want more great content and a little bit more of the peek behind the scenes, as we say, that's where you can get it on Patreon. So some great shows there. We just posted our episode number 600 on Patreon. So if you want to hear our 600th episode, that's where you'll find it on Patreon. So you find that at commandcontrolpower.com. Click support. And thanks everybody for listening.
Plus, you could sell your live gear to Joe on the show.
That's right. You can sell us live. Yeah, you can make deals live. Yeah, another little perk of membership. Thanks, everybody.